Hi everyone, it's Marisa from BumblebeeApothecary.com, and today I'm going to share the birth story of my third child. This is another one of my positive, natural home birth stories. So just to be really clear, I did just have baby number 4, but since I already have my first 2 birth stories uploaded and I do want to share my 4th soon, I wanted to keep them in order and share my 3rd one today. So if you've watched my first 2, you will know that my labors have been good and healthy and no complications, but not easy. They've been long and required a lot of work on my part, and I'm really excited to share this one with you because this is the first one where it actually went so much better. I will link my first 2 birth stories down below in the description box if you want to go and check those out. But let's go ahead and jump into my 3rd birth story. So with my 3rd pregnancy, I switched midwives. I talk a little bit about this in my 2nd birth story video. One of the main reasons is that the midwife that I was with for my 1st and 2nd baby, when I was in labor with my 2nd, she was encouraging me to do different positions that she thought were going to be helpful, but they were very much against what I felt like my body wanted me to do. And basically, long story short, it still ended up being very long, very hard, and he came out face up. And so I was pretty discouraged by that. When I found out that I was pregnant with my 3rd baby, I started off with the same midwife just because, you know, you first tell them about the positive pregnancy test and you just kind of go with who you've been with before. There were some other things that came up in the very early part of the pregnancy with communication with her that just made me a little less happy. Just it didn't feel as professional as it should be. Anyway, and then that coupled with the last birth experience made me start thinking about maybe switching. So I reached out to another midwife who did her apprenticeship with this first midwife, and I had gotten to know her that way because she was at my first birth and could possibly have been at my 2nd as well. And so I had already started to get to know her. She was licensed now, and so I talked to her and I just felt really good about switching. That's the best way that I can describe it. It just felt like really the right thing to do. And looking back, I'm so glad that I listened to that. Like, it can sound kind of nebulous, like choosing caregivers to work with and things like that when it's put that way, but if you know, you know. There's just something about choosing these kind of things where there's information that goes into it, and then there's like instinct as well, that it's like it just feels like the right decision. So I went ahead and switched to her, and the pregnancy was great. Super healthy, no complications. I went ahead and did chiropractic care for the entire pregnancy, just like I did last time. And then something new that I did in this pregnancy, which I know made a huge difference, is that I went to a person for body work. So it's like a craniosacral therapy. It's similar to chiropractic, but it works with more of the softer tissues rather than the skeleton so much like chiropractic does. That's the best way I can describe it. It ends up feeling like a massage, kind of. It's so relaxing. It's like perfect treat for your tired, aching, pregnant body. But anyway, she works everything to have everything lined up properly, which really fits really nicely with chiropractic, kind of filling in the parts that chiropractic doesn't address and helping everything be really lined up in a really great alignment, which helps for baby positioning, and then also just making room. So getting rid of tension, moving things so that all the tension is gone, which creates so much more room and helps that baby be in a really good position. So I saw her one time towards the end of the pregnancy. So we were paying attention to the position that the baby was in. He was kind of trying to hang out from one side or the other instead of having his back be completely forward, and we were just, you know, a little leery of him wanting to turn to be face up like the last baby ended up being. So my midwife recommended going to see this lady for the body work. And so I did one time towards the end of the pregnancy. And then, so let's talk about how the labor went. So I remember that I had gone to bed. I had tried to sleep. So with this pregnancy, I had felt some contractions at least once, maybe more than once, where it was in the evening where I was thinking, oh, this might be going somewhere, but then it didn't. It died down. So then this particular evening, I started feeling some kind of contractions on and off, nothing regular, nothing close together. And I finished up some work on the computer, and then I went to bed, I think around 11, and I think I fell asleep sleep, but it wasn't super deep sleep or anything, because I think then around midnight or 1, I woke up again with contractions that were still going. And so I thought, okay, this is probably going somewhere. And sure enough, it did. For me, the first stage, once things are for sure going, usually tends to go quite fast. And so things are getting more intense. And I think it was a little after 2, I could tell it was for sure the real thing. And so I asked my husband to call or just let the midwives know. So they were like, okay, we'll be on our way pretty soon. And then at 2:35, they were for sure on their way over. And they got to our house about 3 a.m. When I was like, okay, make sure that they're on their way, was when my water broke. So then all at once, I was in transition. I felt the urge to push. And so around 3, then they showed up after all of that had happened. So I would say around 3 a.m. was the official start of stage 1. So from that point on, this is also the first birth that I had a water birth. The other 2, I was just using positions, and I would take a shower for part of the time and just kind of get through it. The water makes such a difference. It is just amazing how well that works to keep you comfortable and relaxed. So with this birth, I wasn't in the water all the time. I was kind of in and out. It felt too hot for me. So this was the end of August, so it was a warm time of year anyway, and it needs to be a certain temperature to be warm enough when the baby does come out, if the baby were to come out in the water. And so I remember thinking, oh, it's kind of uncomfortable. It's kind of hot water. I'm not really loving this that much, but it did help like relax and help everything be a lot more comfortable and everything. So I was in and out of the water. So during this stretch of time when I'm in labor, I tried different positions. I was on my hands and knees a lot. They did suggest some different things for me to try, like putting a leg up on a couch and different things like that. And so I'm just, you know, working through knowing that I have to work hard to bring these babies down. It's just the way that my body is. And yeah, so nothing really eventful happened during that stage, that period of time, just, you know, making progress. And then they had the idea, let's try the squatty potty. So if you know what those are, it's like a toilet stool. I'll link one down below so you can check out what they are if you're not already familiar with them. But what they are is you sit when you're going to the bathroom and you can put your feet up on it, so it puts you in more of a natural squatting position, which is better for your colon health and better elimination and everything. Anyway, we have one in our bathroom, and it turns out that those can be fantastic for getting a person into the right position for a really easy birth. So they had the idea, let's go ahead and try that. So I sat on that, and it was the perfect position for things to open up, and that's how he was born. So his head, when he came out, you could tell there was a little place where his head must have been turned just a little bit, and so I had been pushing with his head not in exactly the right, you know, turn just a little bit so that it wasn't able to progress faster than that. But then I think going on to that position on the squatty potty helped him get his head right into the right position, and then he was able to come out. So that was at 4:33, I think, a.m. So that means my pushing stage this time, from, you know, the last 2 births being 4 hours of second stage hard pushing, was just an hour and a half. So that was hugely encouraging, so much better. I was so happy with that, so relieved. And he was perfectly healthy, very big baby, 9 pounds, 7 ounces, which is, I think, is so funny because my easiest births have been my biggest babies too. So size, I guess, doesn't really matter. It's position. Position is everything. And I think that that body work that I did really, really helped. And then after my 4th birth, which I'll talk about in another upcoming video, just solidified that idea for me of how amazing that is. So yeah, he was here. He was a surprise. We didn't know that he was going to be a boy. So I had 2 boys now, which I thought was so crazy and so fun, and all of that was great. I was just so happy at how much better everything went. And then a funny little thing happened afterwards. The placenta was a bit stubborn. It didn't want to come out within the 1 hour time frame. For a home birth, you have to make sure that it's out within an hour, and they didn't want to like force anything because you could hemorrhage, and if you're at home hemorrhaging, that's bad news. So we did head over to the hospital and just had the placenta come out there, and it was fine. It was uneventful, could have happened just fine at home, and I would have been totally fine. No hemorrhaging or anything, but we were just glad to, you know, be in the hospital just in case. Better to be safe. And then once that was done, came back home, and yeah, so that was my 3rd birth story. Learned a lot of things, learned about a lot of things that really help as far as position and things to do in pregnancy to get ready. And stay tuned because pretty soon I'm going to be sharing my 4th birth story for the new baby that I just recently had. He's about 2.5 months old now, so that one's nice and recent, and that was better better yet. It was amazing. It blew my mind how fast it was. So I'll share more details about that, all the details, and the things that I did in the pregnancy that I think made a big difference based on what I had learned. And yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed hearing that. I'd love to hear your experiences. If you have anything to add to that, leave me a comment down below. If you did like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with anybody else who you think would find it interesting. And if you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I get out 2 new videos every week on nourishing recipes and natural living. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.